Hey, what's up? It's Steve-O, back on the YouTube. Been a bloody long time since I've put anything up. I guess you could say my priorities have kind of been in other areas. But yeah, kind of got keen to jump back on and give everyone a bit of an update on the Sportster. So I had a quick look, and that was like coming up to maybe a year and a half ago that I first built this and got it on the road, and I've changed a lot of stuff on this bike. As you can see, it looks a lot different to what it did. I'm just gonna run through basically everything I've done. I've fabricated a lot of stuff for this, done all sorts of stuff to it. So yeah, I'll start at the start and run through it for you guys. All right, so I'll literally start at the front wheel, work my way to the back and explain everything that I've done. Front wheel's still the same front tyre still. I've done brake upgrades. So I've got the Arlen & Ness 11.5 inch rotor on there, which I rate. It's been pretty good. I initially upgraded the brakes to, I think they're 2009 Softail caliper and master. But I've recently just changed out the master to a Frando 15mm master cylinder. I've only ridden it like once since I put that on. Goodridge custom made brake line. And let me just say that it works a lot better than the standard brake. The standard front sporty brake was horrible, to be honest. Righto, now onto the forks. First thing you can probably notice is I've chucked a fork brace on there. It's just a cheap one. Seems to be effective. It just stiffens the front end up a bit, gets rid of a bit of that wobble. I've fiddled with the internals a little bit. I've pulled them down, rebuilt them, new seals, cleaned all the internals. I think these have actually got, I think they're called DFX valves inside them. I've pulled them to bits, cleaned them out. Fiddled with oil levels, fiddled with preload spacing. I've actually bought some preload adjustment tops, and I'm running the forks down a little bit in the clamps. The current setup's probably the best it's been since I've owned it, but to be honest, it's still a little bit average, so maybe later on that'll get some attention. Headlight and everything's all the same, still the same bars and risers. Can't remember if I had that clutch on there or not when I initially built it. That's an Elite Moto Tech. I think it's 1.5 finger lever length. As you can see, it's a nice 2 finger, or you can 1 finger it as well. That thing's a game changer. Really helps with wheelies and stunts and whatnot, because you're hanging off the clutch all day, and it is just a lot nicer to grab onto than the standard setup. Plus it's a lighter clutch feel as well. What else have we got? I've messed around with grips a heap of times. Don't mind these. Probably not the best, but they seem to be all right. The Renthal full waffle. Got the fashion bar bag on there. All right, down to the fuel tank. You probably noticed that looks a lot different to my old tank. This is a Sportster custom tank off a 2006 model. Just fits straight on. Only issue I did have was that I've got this coil relocation bracket, and it kind of interfered with my fuel hose fitting there. So I ended up having to cut the key bracket off, move it forward. Then I had some more issues, so I ended up having to redo it again. So that's been a bit of dicking around, but where it is at the moment, sweet, it's working good. Also, I had to cut my seat down to fit this tank. I think it was about 45mm. Cut the base, cut the foam, and then my seat guy Cam at North Coast Custom Trim redid the front of the cover for me. A little bit weird to get used to at first, with the seat being a lot shorter than it used to be. You kind of don't have much like body position movement there, but it still works fine. Just had to take a while to get used to it. This tank's a lot wider than the old tank, but I just like the look of it. They're lower. They just got a nicer shape, and they're 4.5 litres more capacity, so I get longer fuel range now as well. Yeah, pretty cool. Stoked on that. Down to this big old girl, the motor. So initially the motor was a stock 883. Since then I've done a 1200 conversion. I got some genuine 1200 cylinders. I got them re-honed, measured to suit, and then I ordered genuine Screaming Eagle pistons. Still standard cam. I think that was pretty much it. So a pretty easy conversion, really. Bit of a learning curve. I haven't really done that a motor like this before, but yeah, I figured it out. I ended up getting it dyno tuned as well, and she put out, I think it was 75 horsepower and 80 or 82 torque, I think it was. So a really big improvement. The motor was initially, what was it, 50 something horsepower and 50 something torque. So a pretty significant upgrade in the motor as far as power and torque goes. A lot nicer to ride, a lot easier to stunt, just way better. I've done an Arlen & Ness big sucker air intake, which I like because the standard setup, the actual housing was really big, and I found my leg was always smashing into it. Especially coming down from wheelies, I was slamming my shin into the air filter and really didn't rate it. So that's nicer, looks better, obviously more performance. And then my nephew 3D prints these covers for them, and same with the timing cover there as well. I've also done a breather mod. Jump online and look up those if you're interested. There's heaps of info about them. Still the same crash bar. I've just made up some different ends. The old ones wore out a bit, and then I've done these nice ones with some knurl on there. I have had a couple of stacks on this bike since the last video. Crash bars saved the day. Pretty stoked on that. Same as the rear ones. They do their job. What else? I've made this gear shift knob. It's just made of Delrin, the same material that they're made of. Made them up on the lathe. Bit nicer feel on the foot. We'll move into the clutch. So I think initially I had the standard clutch in there. When I made the last video, I quickly found that clutch was rubbish and it slipped like almost straight away. So I put a Barnett extra plate kit in. That was all right for a while. One of my mates rode my bike and did something silly on it and fried the clutch for me. Cheers, mate. And yeah, it was kind of never the same after that. I think I got about not quite a year out of that clutch. And then after I rebuilt the motor with the 1200 extra power, the clutch just started slipping real bad, so I changed it. I ended up going with an Energy One extra plate kit with the plus 15 heavy duty spring. And actually when I first put the clutch in, I didn't use the spring. I wanted to keep the stock spring to keep the lever feel really light. But it started slipping straight away with all the extra power. So I pulled it down again, put the extra heavy duty spring in the clutch, and it's never slipped once. It's been so good. I can't rate that clutch enough. It's actually been awesome, so that's good. It's a little bit heavier at the lever, I got to admit. It's probably a touch heavier than standard now, but yeah, the benefit is that I never have a slipping clutch. So also change your fluid all the friggin' time. Do it heaps, because it gets shitty in there and then it starts slipping. And you got to keep your adjustment really good as well. So adjust it all the time, change the oil all the time, and you'll be laughing. All right, moving towards the back now. I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about the seat that this isn't the seat that I had originally either. The original one Cam did for me was nice and comfy and everything, but it wasn't steep enough for the wheelies. And when I built the bike, I didn't even really know if I was gonna do wheelies, so that's kind of why it happened like that. But yeah, I ended up taking it back to him. He added a heap more foam at the back here, with the gripper material in the center here, and it's perfect now. It's really comfy, good for a long ride, can do all my tricks with it and no issues. So, and of course got my logo on the top there, all embroidered. Okay, what else? Chain drive. So it had the chain drive before, but I've changed gearing recently. The old sprocket was a 55. Now I'm running a 51, and I think the front is a 24 or 23. Can't quite remember, but the ratio now is close to standard, and I like it a lot better. It just cruises better on the highway. Yeah, everything about it just seems to be better, where it was a bit too revvy through the whole gear range with the old setup. So got the gold chain on there, DID chain. Stoked on it. I've done a chain slider here, and I've made this chain roller down here, just to make sure the chain's not going to rub on anything, cause any dramas. I have to mention that the rear end is lifted now as well. I'm running these Legend 14-inch shocks, and I'm actually using a lowering kit that I bought, and I just put them on backwards, and it's actually lifted the rear end about 20 mil. So yeah, that's what ended up giving me some chain dragging issues, and the slider and the roller have combated that issue. The only issue over this side was that if I go back any further with my axle, the brake caliper is going to hit the shocks. So it kind of worked out all right. As you can see, the axle's really far forward, but it's kind of where I had to run it. When I set the rear end up with the taller shocks, it felt way better. I don't know why. It's obviously changed the geometry a bit, but whatever it did, it just makes the rear end feel a lot better now. So I'm pretty stoked on that. I think I got lucky there. Recently just added these chrome strut covers just to jazz it up a bit. You'll probably notice too, this fender's different. So originally I had the Dyna fender on there. You probably remember me going through the details with that. I had to widen the struts and then did a heap of mods to get it on there. Over time, I kind of didn't really like that fender. Just didn't like the look of it. It was too wide. So I ended up buying a standard Sportster rear fender, and I ran it full length for a while, and then I eventually got the wheelies good enough that I could scrape the fender. And then yeah, now I've chopped it down, got the titanium block on there. Probably can't, I can kind of see. I've built a scrape plate bracket underneath. It's got my Thrashing saddlebag mounts welded to it there, so I can chuck them on the longer rides or whatever. Loving the setup, it's been good. Recently made this as well. That's a rear step, wheelie step, I suppose you'd call it. It's got the same number plate set up on it with all my lights and everything in it. Pretty clean setup. All right, down to this side. So still running the standard brake. Seems to work. Haven't really had too much of an issue with it. Recently just changed the line though. I've got a Goodridge custom line on there. Only ridden it a few times since then and it feels a little bit better, so that's good. Running some good pads in there as well. The standard rotor. Pretty stoked on that setup. It's working. That wheel is different. So originally when I built the bike, you probably remember that I had a 19-inch 13-spoke front mag on the rear because when I bought the bike, it was a flat track bike. Quickly realised that that really wasn't the setup. So I swapped that wheel for this 9-spoke 16-inch Harley rear wheel. Had to get the hubs machined. Bit of a dick around to set it up bearing wise because this runs the 25mm rear axle and the wheel was initially set up for 3/4 axle. So bit of a dick around. Had to make spaces and whatnot. But we got it on there and it's way better. Rides better, looks better, easier to get tyres for. So yeah, that worked out good. Another little trick here. If you own a Sportster, you'll know that the standard clevis here for the foot peg is like 20mm longer than this one. I know you can buy shortened ones. I just cut mine down, re-welded it, and it's better. Like your brake lines up better with your foot peg now, whereas before this peg was out 20mm further this way, and it just kind of wasn't right. Still got the same pipe on. A little bit of damage on the side there, but she's going strong. Actually pretty stoked on the pipe. It's been really good. Sounds good. Looks decent. Happy days. In here, I've done some oil tank mods. So the standard oil tank feed line is here. When you're doing a lot of wheelies and you start getting them pretty steep, your oil level actually drops below that point unless your tank's like extremely full. So the remedy is tap a new fitting into the tank here. Just run these brass fittings and now your pickup is at a better spot for when you're doing the wheelies. That pretty much is a must-do mod for when you start getting decent wheelies back. So yeah, that's it. Probably doesn't look like much, but I can assure you I've worked on this thing so much. Just playing around, trying different parts. Like I forgot to mention too that scrape plate's actually the second one. First one I made was a lot longer when I was first learning. Decided to make a whole new one. So just parts like that. It takes a lot of time, a lot of dicking around, but it's been fun. I've learned a lot, like mechanically with the bike. I've learned a lot riding with the bike. Yeah, it's been awesome. Love it. Probably see in the background here too. This is Lee's FXR. We've done a shitload to this thing as well. It's had an engine rebuild, all new suspension, blah, 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 new wheels, brakes, everything. So maybe do a walk around on that. Who wants to see a walk around video on this thing?